Welcome to The Grit Theory. This is your host, Jonathan Mayo, and today I am joined by Lindsey Mayo. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. So, bit of a different flavor, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. We're gonna talk about two primary things today. Have a bit of a conversation there, but the first one is what has changed, because change has occurred,
Correct.
and the second one is where I'm going with the Grit Theory, where we are going with the Grit Theory collectively, all of our listeners and anyone who participates.
Correct.
Right? So first, what has changed? For one, Aaron's not here. Little obvious.
Yeah, I don't look very much like him at all.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you don't look like Aaron. I think he understands. So real short on that. He has to handle some other business, so he's going to handle his stuff. And we were able to part ways with Grace and protect our friendship and do good things there. So all in all, that's positive. It's always hard to say goodbye to a partner, especially when you build something for a while and put a lot of effort into it. But it was the necessary call for where he is in life right now, and
Absolutely.
I respect that, right?
Yeah.
And
sometimes it's hard to do that.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to say yes and no's to things, but that's kind of part of this whole life thing. And frankly, it also, that change has sparked a lot, which is really the bulk of what we're going to talk about today.
Right.
Right? Where's the grit theory going? What am I going to do now? Right? And I think that's where the discussion comes in, because I've taken a step back. Because, like, if you do anything and something significant changes in the equation of what you do, right? For example, here, Aaron's not here anymore. I have a couple choices. I can throw in the towel. That is a choice, right? Oh dear. That is a choice, which I'm not taking. There's another choice where I can try to just duplicate what I was doing with Aaron. I'm fixing my mic, guys. I screwed it up, which I don't think works well, right? You can't recreate something when you're missing a huge piece of the equation. And then the third option is I can take assessment of what I've done, where I want to go, and what resources I have in front of me.
Yeah. And you two got into a really good groove together too. So your conversation was flowing really well, and you think along the same lines. So during your interviews and just, not necessarily interviews, but just when you had guests and things like that on the shows, you're talking about grit and their stories. You both had different ideas to pull on and brought a lot to the conversation. So
correct. So that, given all that, you just have to take assessment of what's changed, and then what can I do with what I have, right? Like you can want the same ingredients, but if they're gone, they're gone. So what are you going to do?
Right.
And that's really what I've been spending the last week and a half pondering, talking with you about, going through. So like structurally, there's now a single host, but I plan on having some regulars, right?
Right.
Who are on the show quite often. Like you, I want to have on the show as much as possible. Kirk hasn't been on yet, but love to see him. Billy's welcome anytime. If Aaron can make it, that'd be sweet. And we'll kind of have this...
Have a crew.
Yeah, there's going to be a crew who cycles through.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it more of a community effort.
Right. People who see the same vision, share the same vision, want to walk the same line.
Correct. So I'm kind of excited to see how that works out,
Yeah.
And then... And
gives us lots of different perspectives too.
It'll flood with perspectives. It'll make it fun and entertaining for our guests. It'll keep the conversation lively and fresh. So on a structural level, excited for that.
Yeah.
Right. And we're working to get all like the back end stuff handled so we can have a near seamless thing there. That's kind of fun. But those are the structural pieces, and those are the easy pieces now that they're decided. The other stuff is kind of more fun. And I was thinking about the grit theory because you kind of challenged me. Okay, what's the goal of the grit theory, right? And what are we doing with that?
What's your direction? What's your purpose? What's your statement? Do you have one? Yeah, those were questions I posed to you earlier this week, so we could actually think about them and not just like, oh, well, we think it's this.
Correct.
So we've actually been able to really go, no, this is it. This is why we've been doing this much more, and now we really want to press in too.
And the really pressing in is what we're about to jump to. So to start, I drafted a goal for the grit theory, and it's not complete, but we're in a journey here. To everyone who listens, everyone who's a part of this is in a journey.
Right, and we want to be really transparent.
Yeah. Like we're building this thing right now. So you're part of building it. So, but the goal, yeah, I'll just read it real quick. So my goal with the grit theory is to encourage people to be brave enough to begin leading themselves so that they can become someone worthy of leadership in their home, and after their home, their community.
Yeah. I was just listening to another podcast, Stan Crenshaw's podcast.
Okay.
He had a journalist on there, and she was talking about how rare courage has become.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things where it's fizzled out a little bit.
Well, so
that goes in line with what you were just talking about, right? Like you can't develop these things if it doesn't start with you.
correct. And here's the direct tie-in, right? So earlier you challenged me. You're like, that's a great why, right? That's a great like vision, big fuzzy thing. But how the heck do you apply it?
Yeah.
And there's a few thoughts into that. So one, it ties into grit directly because the definition for grit's a noun, right?
Right.
And the definition is bravery, courage, and determination despite difficulty. All right, that's perfect. Bravery, courage, and determination despite difficulty. Well, how can we apply the big picture to this? I want to encourage people to face difficult things head on where they're weak, right? And earlier this week, I was listening to a conversation, and it was talking about the idea of a gentleman put forth, like the Eastern gentleman put forth by Confucius in his works, the Analects. And the essential premise is you cannot lead a state without being able to lead your family. You cannot lead your family without being able to lead yourself.
Right.
And it all starts with the self. So how the heck do you put into action this big goal of encouraging someone to be brave enough to fix themselves so that they can then fix their family and fix their thing? How can they have the courage to challenge their own demons, their own weaknesses, their own softnesses? It starts with yourself. If you're fat, get in shape. If your money's not in order, begin to build a budget.
Yeah, small steps.
If you can't sleep, if you sleep in too much, set an alarm and stick to it.
Right.
And
like Aaron had even said, adjust it 5 minutes. Wake up 5 minutes earlier than you normally do. Start small. Or if you need to, wake up 15 minutes before. Just like don't try to jump the hour. Because if you're, wanting to wake up at 5, but you struggle waking up at 6.
Yeah, I'd say
small steps at a time.
The change has to be proportional to the
Mayo,
reward.
And then you wake up at 4 a.m.
I think the change just has to be proportional to the reward.
Yeah.
Right. And
how willing are you going to be doing it? Like, how willing are you to do it?
Correct. And sometimes you have to build that muscle, and you have to have the humility to say, to address yourself realistically on what you believe you're capable of and not, right? It sounds great when you're rested and fed at night, just I'm waking up at 4 till 4 comes. If you wake up at 7 every day, that's a huge jump. So to your point, if it's a smaller thing, that's fine. But like you apply it by doing small things, and that grows, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
When you
1 week you do it this way, and then you add on to it.
Yeah.
So that way it's accumulating into your change, but it's breaking your habits.
Correct. And that's the critical thing, because breaking your habits, breaking what you condition yourself to. Everyone has, I think there's this fallacy of thought where it's like, I'm going to rise to the occasion. Right. And it's false. When something happens, you're going to fall to the lowest common denominator.
Right.
Whether that's your training or your experience or what have you. And if you don't prepare yourself, if you don't hone yourself and create something of yourself in the day in and day out so that you have a threshold that's higher, when the stuff hits the fan, you're going to fall to whatever your weakness is. And that's what we're talking about here. We want to condition ourselves for chaos. We want to increase our courage and bravery despite difficulty so that...
And be willing to stand against the grain.
Well, and that's a byproduct, right?
Yeah.
If you begin to tell yourself no to things you want, if you begin to make yourself do things you don't want to because it improves you, over time, that grows into having courage to have hard conversations with people.
Right.
And over time, that grows into courage to act.
Yeah, becomes bold.
Correct. So the seed that I want to plant is the courage to start with yourself. And that's really a lifelong pursuit. And the goal is that over time, that'll create a movement of people who are willing to embrace grit, work to hone it, embrace it, and forge it head on so that they can become agents of good in their communities, their homes, and for themselves.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
It starts with the self.
Yeah.
So that's the thought there.
Right. And that's kind of the direction we want grit theory to go,
That's exactly the direction
you know? So
we want it to go. And that's what we're going to be working to do.
we want to change the noun into a verb because we want it no longer just be a sedentary. We want it to be action.
Yes, we want it to be an action. The noun to the verb, like you said, I love that. The theory to practice, right? And an idea into a way of active being.
Yeah. And taking the guest stories that, wow, that sounds great. That's super cool. But okay, now how do I apply it? Right? Like, how do I pull from these different guests and go, this is the grit that I could even apply? You know, this is what they did, and I can for sure take it and apply it as well. So we want to kind of, you know, sift through and look through our guests and just friends and people and be like, these are common denominators. These are common grounds that we're seeing through people who have grit, who've walked the hard way, who've purposely chosen difficulty. And this is how we can not make it, but this is how we can show others like, hey, this is a tangible thought. This is a tangible action. Instead of just going, wow, his story was really cool. He did have a lot of grit. And then moving on with your life. No, I want this to change you. Like, if this doesn't change you, if this doesn't influence you, then we got to find something else that's going to, you know, saturate you.
It's 100% true, and it's amazing how fast this grows. I say fast. Over the last 3 years, it's really tremendously changed my life.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Really,
but you're honing it in.
It is honing
this
in.
Last year, you've honed it in that much more. You figured out some small steps to be like, this will have massive change for me. This has had massive change for my family, and now I'm getting into my community.
Yeah, right now, you're absolutely right. Right now, I am going through the transitionary period of walking into being bold enough, having enough grit to actually speak out for my community.
Right.
And it is quite a change.
But you've done the work for yourself, and you're still doing the work for yourself. So it's not like, oh, I've mastered self, you know, and now I'm going to move on to this next step. No, self is always going to be in there because different seasons as we grow and things like that will absolutely always change.
You're 100% correct. This is a lifelong pursuit of growth that I'm going to have to go, and everyone who does this has to grow. But I'm just not screwed up enough now that I'm actually leading my family well. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Well, that you're the person who matters on that decision, right? Because you're the ultimate judge of that in my
and
house.
I'll very frankly tell you if you're not.
And
I know you know I will.
If you don't know Lindsey, she is very honest, and she has told me when I'm failing in the past. So to hear that but now that I have myself in order, right? Like like there's nothing I won't give up to become a better human being, to better lead you and my family, and to better be able to influence things positively. There's nothing.
Right.
Drinking, don't care. Gave it up, right?
Yeah.
Comfort, don't care.
What was it? We were talking with a friend, and it was anything that you can sell as long as it's not my family and my kids or my wife and my children and my dogs. There's a price for all of it.
And the dogs are even, there's a price. It's really the wife and kids.
Right.
There's zero price.
There's zero price.
And
you can't pay me enough money for that.
And it's important, right? But you have to start with the humility enough to realize that you've not arrived. And then start putting in the work.
Right. And I'm not saying I've arrived.
No.
I think there's absolutely way much more growth and things like that too. So I'm even doing the self, transformation and pushing myself and making sure that I'm still, walking in that path to be better. But I also see that, our boys are getting older and our family is doing well. Now, it changes on a drop of a dime around here, a drop of a hat, because it just is what it is. But we're able to get a community involvement going, and that's been really good, and that's been nice. But I still have to work on myself first.
We have to, and I think what you're talking about is like life happens, right?
Yeah.
Dogs die. Yesterday we were nursing, over the past few days, we've been nursing piglets and losing some. And, we have a small farm, we got the kids, we have animals, we have a lot of liabilities, things that we love that can get hurt and die, and that's part of life, right?
Yeah.
And but our resiliencies are building. And really what's happening here, and I want to play with this idea, right? So I'm going to read the definition of grit again as a noun, but then I'm going to make it a verb. And then I'm going to say why I want to respond so passionately, why I'm jumping in right now on so many levels. And then I think that's a good catalyst for us
Yeah.
to think about. But grit as a noun is bravery, courage, and determination despite difficulty. Grit as a verb, or as a description, would be to be brave, courageous, and determined despite difficulty or adversity, right?
Yeah.
And what's really transformed me to say, you know what, screw it, I'm going to be brave despite discomfort. I'm going to be courageous and push forward, and I don't care about the difficulty. I'm fighting with everything I have. What am I fighting for? I'm fighting for our country and the rights that it has given us
And the freedoms.
and the freedoms that it has given us. Freedom
Right.
is not free. And I want to do everything in my ability. The buck's going to stop with me. It's not going to my children. By the time they're grown and can handle this, we will have either protected freedom, we have protected the rights laid out in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and preserved our democracy and way of being so that we can continue the good and necessary work to improve this world, or we will have lost it by the time our kids are grown.
Right.
And
Which is terrifying if you don't understand or grasp that.
it absolutely. And I am so passionately on board for saying I will not shield my eyes. I will not turn away my gaze from the wickedness I'm seeing, the stupidity I'm seeing.
I'm
And
going to run at it head on
correct. I'm going to wage war on it.
and kill it.
I'm going to wage war on
Yeah,
divisiveness.
for sure.
I'm going to wage war on the lies. I'm going to wage war on the consolidation of power. And I'm going to stand for a limited government, for truth, for unity, because for respect and love of one another, because united as a people we can stand.
Right.
And if we learn to love and respect each other, if we can just remember that, then we have one heck of a shot at preserving what has made this the greatest country to live in human history, and what can continue to make it the greatest country in human history, because our work's not done under the freedoms and auspices that we have on this fertile soil. And though so many people have gotten fat off of freedom, it's time to wake up and protect this gift and use it for what it's meant to be used, not just to continue getting fat. So that's where the passion comes in from why the heck do I care? That's why I started Untrenched, which is another show that's directly looking at having intentional conversation across difficulty to build and forge.
Uncomfortable conversation.
Uncomfortable.
Because your partner in that, you guys don't see eye to eye on a lot of the things, but you're willing to have open, honest conversation and going, you know what, I can see it that way.
Correct.
And I'm willing to sit and think on that and see how that, that works for me.
Correct. And
then going, I think it's okay to agree to disagree, but we can still love one another and have a friendship over this.
well, the premise is different. In Untrenched, we're looking to gain understanding, to create common ground that we can agree on
Yeah, absolutely.
and be stronger for and respect each other in, so that we can then actually have problem-solving approaches to the problems, right?
And kill the
Instead of hate.
divisiveness. Yeah.
Kill the divisiveness.
Bring the common ground back to the view instead of like, oh, these are all the things we disagree on. Well, those 3 things are less than the 10 things that we do agree on.
And they're less essential.
Right. They don't matter. I don't care if you like more salt on your food than I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're both eating steak. So
Correct.
the salt shouldn't matter.
Untrenched is
Some
fighting.
people may feel like the salt matters, but
Untrenched is fighting for unity despite differences and doing the difficult conversations to intentionally pursue where we agree, so that we can then come back to solving the problems.
Yeah.
But defining and never forgetting where we agree and where we're together first. It's a exercise in the golden rule, and learning to treat someone like you want to be treated, to love them, to respect them despite how different they are, so that you can then stand together in that unity, protect each other's rights and freedoms, and then try to make the world a better place from your differences, right? Those differences make this place beautiful. And the grit theory is looking at creating the courage, the attributes, the grit that's necessary to have the intestinal fortitude to engage in conversations like that, so we can do the hard work that's necessary to undo the freaking cancer divisiveness that's plaguing our country right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we got little kiddos who need it. And
Yeah.
goodness
There's
sake,
a
we
whole
need it.
generation that comes after us, and we still have a lot of time. Well, hopefully, we still have a lot of time to move as
Mm-hmm.
well.
So with that, we're at a crossroads, and we've chosen to buckle down, assess everything that's going on. And what I want to do is, with renewed energy despite the loss and despite the change in direction, I want to attack this thing with renewed energy, with intentional purpose, and push forward to empower people to be able to improve themselves and the lives they lead with those around them.
Right.
So
Turn it into action.
turn it into action. So for today, if we had to leave everyone with one simple way on how they can put some of what they've heard today into action, what any ideas come to mind for you?
It goes back to that start small.
Yep, start small.
Pick one thing and start changing that today.
No excuse. Today. Pick something
Change
and
it
do
today.
it.
Unless it's the waking up early, figure out something different.
Yeah.
Pick a different one.
Yeah, do something.
Drink an extra glass of water.
So start small.
Whatever it is. Start
All right.
small.
Well, start small, and here's the bottom line, right? If what you saw or heard today if it was impactful to you, please share it, right? Please share it. And if it wasn't, share the next one if it is, when it is. And thank you.
Yeah, think so.